Hi everyone, Mrs. Reilly here with your next installment of First Chapter Friday. So if you are watching this on its release date, it is still April, and so that means it's still National Poetry Month. So I wanted to continue our theme of sharing with you fiction books that are novel in verse. And this one in particular, for those of you who have already had library class this month, will recognize that this author uses blackout poetry in addition to novel in verse, regular poetry for this particular story. So if you were a big fan of the blackout poetry, you can actually see and read blackout poetry in this book. And this book happens to be called Rhyme Schemer by K.A. Holt. And so this is a student named Kevin who is kind of like, he considers himself an outlaw, but he also considers himself kind of like a poet. And he writes his own poems, and most of them are meant to be funny and sarcastic and a little silly. But he also kind of stumbles upon the idea of found poetry and blackout poetry, which most of you who have been in the library already, that's taking a page of printed text, crossing out what you don't want as part of your poem, and circling and emphasizing the words on the page that you want as part of your poem. So again, taking a printed page and using the words already on there to create a poem. And he starts doing this with books he finds around the school. Please do not do this. Do not take your textbooks, books inside your classroom, or any of the books in the library and start trying found poetry. This is a fiction book, and I would like to keep it a fiction book. So I wanted to share with you a couple poems from the novel in verse, Rhyme Schemer by K.A. Holt. Day 2. My brother Petey is in a band, so he always plays air guitar while he lurches us over curbs and through red lights when he drives me to school. His band is called The Band with No Name because it has no name. Duh. He and his bandmates can only think of lame ideas for names, like The Flaming Turtles, or Midnight Puke Fest, or Mustache Farm. My ideas are great, but he never listens to me, only to music with too many guitars. I could learn the guitar. Mrs. Smithson, my teacher, she has this mole. I named it Harry, not because it is hairy, but because it's not. That's called irony, I think. Harry gives a shake when Mrs. Smithson seizes, turns her head, walks too fast, laughs, hollers. If Harry changes color, I would suggest Mrs. Smithson seeks a doctor, more makeup, a bag over her head, a Band-Aid, a black pointy hat. Day 3. Sometimes I wonder about the coffee cups. Every teacher has one. Even the PE teacher, who has so much energy, he seems to just float above the gym mats. What's in those cups? Witch's brew? Ugly potion? Bad hair broth? It smells like coffee, but judging from their breath, I'm sure it's way worse than just that. I found the page in an old book. No one will miss it. No one reads those old books anyway. The words just jumped out at me, like tickly little fleas needing a good scratching. So I scratched them, and no one will know it was me. I stuck it on the wall by the lockers when no one was looking. I couldn't help it. I thought people would laugh. People did laugh. A lot. Until Mrs. Smithson yanked it down. She was not laughing. Those are the first couple poems from Rhyme Schemer by K.A. Holt. I will again remind you to please not try blackout poetry and found poetry in books you see in the school or in the library. If you are a big fan of blackout poetry and found poetry and want to work on these types of things, you can always see me in the library where I can give you extra pages from books that have been well loved and have fallen apart from our library collection. If you'd like to check out Rhyme Schemer by K.A. Holt, make sure to check the Google form for the raffle in the library Google Classroom.